This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 105. If you find yourself often overwhelmed and stressed out, I encourage you to go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end-overwhelm and watch my workshop on the 5 shifts to end overwhelm and live a more balanced and connected life as a highly sensitive woman entrepreneur. Now here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. If you're joining us for the first time, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the Soul-Filled Sisterhood. And I need to make a confession. Today's episode, I have literally been procrastinating now for, actually a couple years, but really over these last couple of weeks of putting this together and saying something out loud. So if you've been listening to me for a while, you know, back in one of my solo episodes, I think it was in the late 2018 or early 2019, I stated I'm a pretty private person. So contemplating doing an episode of what I'm going to talk about, of how fiber arts can really be this mindful and meditative practice to incorporate into your life and really good for your self-care. I've hesitated actually sharing it because it brings you into my personal world. And I know one of my coaches last year, she's like, dude, you need to step into this more and share it. And I've had various close friends of mine tell me over the years, it's incorporate it into your work because you love it so much. So here it goes. A few years back, I was actually quoted in a magazine about how knitting, weaving, and spinning can be a meditative practice, how that repetition can really draw you into a zone and get you into flow. Unfortunately, they gave credit to a whole different person, and as much as I tried to get it corrected and contact them, all that good stuff, it just didn't happen. So I didn't really speak too much about it after that, except for with my clients or with friends, I would share some of the work that I was doing. If you're a highly sensitive person, and if you don't know what that is, go back to episode 9 and you can figure that out and take the quiz for yourself. But HSPs, we're just a creative bunch. I know some of you who are listening, you love writing and you're really, really skilled at that. Others of you are painters, photographers, which is beautiful. We need all these creative outlets in our world because they make us a better person overall. And they just make our world more beautiful. Yet for me, the feel of yarn and fiber in my hands, that whole tactile experience, that's what has drawn me in so much over the years. When I was a much younger girl, I did some, I call it rug hooking. I don't know really what it was called, but I had these little patterns. And of course, it would be of horses and unicorns and things like that because horses are one of my passions. And that's what I remember doing when I was younger. And then when I got a little older, I kind of switched. So when I was in high school, I did some photography. And then I don't know, I just did various crafts throughout my years, but I didn't stick with the yarn or fiber arts. It wasn't until I got done with grad school and I got licensed as a licensed marriage and family therapist that when I moved up to the Sierra foothills just south of Tahoe in California, I decided to take a knitting class with one of my good friends from California. And the teacher I had, her name was Allison. She was just a gem. I loved her. She was so warm and inviting and encouraging. She was not critical if you made a mistake. She literally wanted you to know the why behind why you did what you did within knitting, which I so love. So she was practical and also just really warm. And she made a joke with us because I took it in a little class. We created an Afghan in blocks. And I remember she would talk about get really comfortable with what the frog's saying. We're looking at her like, what? She's like, rip it. So you'd knit something. And of course I would screw it up multiple times. And she's like, just rip it out. And that getting comfortable with taking things out and redoing it over and over and over truly helped me embrace the imperfection. It helped me get over having to do things, quote, perfectly, because we know we don't. We're humans. We're going to make mistakes. And we also know when you're learning something new, you are going to make mistakes, whether that's a new job, it's a new skill, you're in a new relationship, you're going to make mistakes. That is part of growing. That is part of learning. That's all normal. So I so appreciate Allison for what she really taught me on so many different levels when I was taking the knitting class with her. And after years of owning her yarn shop, I remember the day when she was telling myself and my friend, she was selling the shop, she was closing it. And we're like, what? On the other side of it, she also did somatic work, which is body work. And if I remember correctly, she did rolfing was what she did. And that's what she was going to go into. It's like her next career was going to be in rolfing. Since then, I have taken various online courses. I've learned through DVDs. I've done in-person workshops. And I just love knitting. It's one aspect that I love. And I remember I had some family members of mine like, hey, steer away from kind of the acrylic yarns, which they're great to learn on, and they've got a place for things, but they really talked about going back to natural fibers. So I use a lot more of wool. And I know now I've got friends who are sheep herders or shepherds. And so, yes, I definitely have some fiber in my world, to say the least. Maybe what I really need to say is, yes, I have bags of fiber in my world. I have attempted to get a couple of my teachers on the podcast, but they've got so many things going on in their life. One is actually writing a book in her work, and another one, she is now in the career of actually doing editing for a big magazine. And both of them, I wanted them to talk about how they created their business and their career in the fiber arts world. And I believe they're both HSPs, even though I never asked them, just knowing about them and the way they speak and the way they kind of conduct themselves in the world. I'm like, yeah, I think they're highly sensitives. Well, my teacher and friend who is she's a master knitter, she's also a master spinner. And I started learning with Kate, I don't know, this has been many years ago now. And then on a whim, I had heard that, she was going to go to a workshop, a week-long workshop with Judith McKenzie. And so I went with her and a few other women, and I was out west, and it was just an amazing thing. And if you don't know Judith McKenzie, she is an internationally known fiber artist, storyteller. She's just an amazing woman. She's literally traveled the world, and she works with all different kinds of fibers, and she's a weaver, spinner, all of that. She's just amazing. Well, then I got back, and since then, when I moved to Indianapolis, I found a local weaving guild. So, of course, I now got into that. I fell in love with it. I bought a used loom. I have, again, taken many workshops from amazing, skilled, talented women who, again, have traveled the world, who have been teaching for years. And the fascinating thing about weaving, total side note, is that often in the years ago, it used to be done by men. And there are still men weavers and knitters and dyers and all of that in our world. But there's more women now that do those things, it seems like, than men. So every year I am typically investing in myself. Again, like I talked about with Tamara back in 103, we talked about how personal development is also part of your self-care. So every year I'm investing in myself, again, whether this year it's not going to be in-person stuff, but whether it's an in-person workshop or I am watching an online course or have a DVD, I'm investing in some of these crafts so I can continue to learn these skills. Last year I learned how to create socks on a sock machine, which was absolutely fun. And then this year I'm really learning how to do some tapestry from another teacher. So whether I'm doing knitting, spinning, or weaving, I just find these processes so meditative. They keep bringing me back to the moment. It's like listening to the whirl of the spinning wheel, whether it's the pedal wheel or it's an electric wheel, and just feeling that wool flow through my hands or the whomp of the beater of the weaving loom. It's very rhythmic, and I get into this space of just being quiet. And in the end, you get to see this product, this thing you have created, whether you're playing with colors, whether you're trying out a new knitting pattern or a weaving pattern, you get to see what works and what doesn't. I have given things away to friends and family members when I get done because I get excited about learning something new when it comes to weaving and trying it out. And of course, there is typically multiple mistakes throughout it, but they don't care. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I don't do it for the kudos. I do it because I love it. And I do it because it's a whole different process of just tapping into a different side of me, a different side of my brain. And I absolutely find it amazing. So I know over the years, I have chatted with various women who in the workshops and the communities that I'm in, where they stopped their craft, their practice for years because they were bringing up children, which made me sad on one level, and then happy when they said, they've returned to it and they've gotten back to this. But if you know, or if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I am all about self-care. I'm all about that personal development. And the thing is, I know that being a fiber artist full-time can be challenging financially for some, yet the older instructors that I'm talking about who are like in their 70s and have been doing this for many, many years now, their concern is that we're going to lose this fiber art world if we're not teaching the younger generation. It's like any trade, right? I know the guys, truly the men that are on this old house, they've created an academy now to actually teach younger generation the skills, whether it's in woodworking, it's in cabinetry, it's in HVAC systems, electrical, plumbing. These are all skills and trades, and not every youngster, young child, young adult wants to go in and be an accountant like I used to be. They don't want to go into that kind of field. They want to work with their hands, and we need that. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, if you have been, a fiber artist in the past, whether you sell your work or not, get those knitting needles back out, dust off that spinning wheel or loom, and set time aside for you. And if you've got younger children, begin to show them what you're doing. To me, it's like you're feeding your soul. And it gets me really grounded in my body again. And when you're able to be, or when you're more grounded, when you're more in your body, you're able to respond to events in life versus react to them out of emotions. Remember, it improves your relationships with others. It keeps you from yelling at your kids. The fiber creations that I have done, the things I've done during those moments of when I'm literally like playing with my hands as I'm thinking of spinning, I have sat there spinning wool before and come up with various ideas of how to market my businesses or what I could incorporate into certain sessions with people. It can really actually improve your business, not just your personal life, but your business life too. Because again, it's something different. It shakes it up a little bit. I can't think of the title of the book, but I remember pulling something out of the library, and the knitting book was actually written by a couple licensed psychotherapists, and they too referenced how knitting can improve your mental well-being, and a lot of this, and there's other people who have referred it to on blogs and other research that they've done that knitting, spinning, weaving, some of these fiber art creations or creative ways, they literally do decrease anxiety. They decrease depression because one, there's a tactile experience, but two, it keeps bringing you back into the moment. That mindfulness is such an important piece. And again, it taps into that creative side where if you're not giving yourself permission to create, to be in that moment, and even if you're a woodworker, right? I mean, all that stuff is tactile and in the moment. And it can really, truly improve your mental wellness. The other thing I want to say is, the fiber arts world has brought me so many different things. I have met some incredible women in various communities that I've been a part of. Like I said earlier, it helps me with the flow of ideas because things will just kind of spring up on its own when I'm in that moment. And that's part of what mindfulness can do. It's another creative outlet. It feeds a passion of mine. The other thing is, which I know this is a totally separate episode because I can really go down the rabbit hole with this, is when you're buying from a local fiber artist, right? Not only are you supporting their business, But oftentimes you'll get the name of the sheep or the place that they've picked the cotton from, where it was grown, and you're helping sustain more natural and healthy ways for our planet, where they're producing more sustainable products and stuff versus some of the garments, that we buy, or the things that we buy, are full of toxic chemicals. They're not as sustainable. People throw things away really quickly because the garments tear and all that stuff. And I know so many different businesses who are out, and women who have actually created these businesses, that they're wanting to say, let's do this differently. And that can be, they're finding different uses for wool as an insulation, going into furniture. So there's less toxicity with it, if I can speak that. Better made garments, all of these things that have a longer lifespan than something that just gets thrown away after, a couple months of wearing it and gets holes in it type of thing. So I hope this encourages you, no matter what sort of fiber arts that you do or whatever your creative outlet is, build that self-care into your daily, if not weekly at a minimum, routine so that you can practice the mindfulness. Again, meditation can come in many, many different forms. And for me, the fiber arts is one way that I get my meditative practice in. Also, it's you regrounding with yourself. It's you taking care of you. If you sell your products, beautiful. I really want to encourage those of you who do a lot of this work or a lot of knitting. Or weaving, if you're not giving it away, also there's you can create your business from it, or create a business from it. And that may bring in some other income that you're needing at this moment, or just kind of help supplement the fiber passion that you have. There's a joke with the ladies that I know, that being in the fiber world can be a very slippery slope, meaning you can start in one area and all of a sudden you can get into so many. And it's really remembering you really do have only so much time in a day to do all the things you want. But I know it is a slippery slope, and I call it, this is my healthy addiction in a lot of ways, because it's not even an obsession. It really is a passion. It just helps me tap back into, connection with animals, with our planet, and brings me a lot of joy, which then does come through because it makes me a better coach. It makes me a better therapist. It makes me a better human being because I've had that joy in my life. So really hope if you've got kiddos as well, get those things out and start to show them some of these things, and so they can start to practice and see what happens, because for HSPs, creative outlets is a really good thing. All right, until next time, take care. To sign up for my workshop on the 5 shifts to end overwhelm and live a more balanced and connected life as a highly sensitive entrepreneur, go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm.